everyone, this is Peak Entertainment and we are back again, and here now we have another video for you. And following the recent Oscars in 2025, I thought I'd take a look and review the big movie of that event, which is of course Anora, and find out as to whether it really was justifying the title of Best Movie of 2024 or whether it was massively overhyped and overrated. So we go back to the movie's original release date of, firstly, the May 21st, 2024, where it was released at the Cannes Film Festival, and then later on in the United States in October 2024 on the 18th. It stars Mikey, Madison, Mark-Edward, Yuri Borisov and Kerry Gog-Julian, and it was directed by Sean Baker. Set in present-day Brooklyn, it follows the story of stripper, nightclub dancer Anora McKeever, who's very young at 23 years old, who's freely and confident in living the life within the sex industry. One night she meets the young Ivan Zakharov, who's also known as Vanya. He's appealed by Anora's ability to speak Russian, and he pays for her sex services on a regular basis. And after several nights, he offers her £15,000 to be his girlfriend for the week. After spending time together in his mansion, he suddenly proposes to her. Initially dismissing the request, Anora eventually comes round and the two get married in Las Vegas in Nevada. And in the beginning, the two live a very happy, carefree party lifestyle. But news of their marriage eventually reaches Ivan's parents, who sends his godfather named Toros and his bodyguards to locate them and get the marriage annulled and bring him back to Russia. After being found within his mansion, a furious argument begins with Ivan leaving Anora alone to escape. What then follows is a frantic chase to find him, whilst Anora goes on to discover that the perfect marriage and life isn't quite what it was promised to be. Now, since its release, Anora has gained multiple critical acclaim and awards, with the consensus being that this is an edgy romantic drama, a modern day classic that is an insightful commentary on the exploitation of sex workers. Now, whilst everybody's entitled to their opinion, I saw a completely different movie. This is a film that has a familiar concept, of which the potential was there to be a very funny, affectionate, entertaining comedic drama. But unfortunately, this turns out to be a disjointed, meandering, chaotic mess that runs criminally over 2.5 hours and just ends up with nothing to say. The film shifts tonally over 3 genres, the first being a softcore porn entry into the sex worker's life, not too far different from what we saw with Paul Verhoeven's Notorious Showgirls. It then goes into what will be a very quirky romantic comedy of how we see an unlikely relationship of 2 distinctly different personalities, a kind of true love conquers all narrative. We then shift quite frantically into what many people have described as a screwball, borderline slapstick comedy that really overtakes the final 2/3 of the film. Now, in the beginning, I'd say the film is okay as we see the couple partying and living the lifestyle, though at the same time the story does tend to meander also. We get numerous nudity and sex scenes that you'd kind of expect in a story involving a stripper within a nightclub, but after a while these scenes feel very tiresome, mundane, and it's almost as if Sean Baker was just throwing these scenes out there just for the sake of it in order to try and be adult and edgy. But overall the scenes just feel very pointless and unnecessary. But as I've said, this film was going along fine as we were steadily building the relationship where you were expecting to eventually see the true connection between the 2 lovers. But then we get that overextended scene at the mansion where they're discovered, where we see Anora kind of being taken hostage, and whilst we get some initially funny moments, the scene descends into constant shouting, screaming, profanity, and this sequence just feels like it goes on forever, and the rest of the film stays in this zone, and it becomes far less funny and much more frustrating as it goes on. Now, another massive flaw within this movie was the characterization, and especially when the couple are concerned, there was very little to no chemistry or emotional connection. Yes, in the beginning we fully understand that this is a relationship of convenience both for sex and money, but we never get the sense of it being anything more than that, despite the film trying to constantly convince us otherwise. You just don't know or understand why Ivan is particularly drawn to Anora. What makes her different than the other many strippers that he's seen before? Is he marrying her more to just spite his parents rather than actually being in love with her? The real love story as a result is just never there. We then talk of Anora herself, and at the start she's very confident, savvy and completely at ease and comfortable in her life and self-aware with no pretensions or delusions, and this makes her quite likeable. But when we get to that mansion scene, she suddenly mutates into a screaming, hyperbolic, abrasive brat. And yes, whilst in that particular situation we would expect anybody to be very anxious and certainly intense in their emotions. But overall, Anora just becomes very insufferable, toxic and indeed very unwatchable. And she stays in this tone for the rest of the film, and after a while you question her overall intelligence and awareness. Now there's a clear point in the story where she realises that the relationship isn't what she thought it to be, and instead of just leaving she constantly sticks around, as if all she thinks about is the money and nothing else. Now of course the plot requires her to hang around for the rest of the story, but you just think in real life somebody like Anora in this situation would have escaped with the first chance that she had. We never get any backstory or context into her character, no real depth into why exactly she has chosen to be a stripper, and at the film's end she's basically the same as what she was at the start. And when we come to that final scene, we ask what the point of her overall journey was. Should we empathise with her or show any sympathy when she willingly chose this life? Ultimately she chased the golden ticket and it didn't work out, and she seemingly knows or learns nothing at the end of it all. At the end, it's simply a reality check. Once more, this person is in a situation that they didn't really need to be in. Nobody forced her into this type of life, and as a result, you just feel nothing for her at the end of the film. We look at Ivan himself, who also has no depth. He's just a typically sport brat that the parents rightly should want to bring back into line, and again, you feel no empathy for his situation. Now the Russian or Armenian characters are complete caricatures, not necessarily nasty or harmless, and of course are completely played for comic relief. But aside from the mother that is seen in the later stages of the film, none of the characters can really be taken seriously. And I dare say that anybody that comes from Russia or Armenia may indeed feel somewhat insulted if this is how they feel characters from their country are seen and portrayed. So as mentioned, despite my many criticisms, Anora was indeed one of the critical darlings of 2024. Financially, it managed to gross over $41 million worldwide on a $6 million budget. It did win the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Festival, and it would go on to be a massive winner at the Academy Awards, winning 5 Oscars, including Best Picture, Best Director. Mikey Madison won Best Actress for her role as Anora, and it also managed to pick up awards for Best Editing and Best Original Screenplay. But for all of his success, we asked the question as to whether Anora really did deserve to win Best Picture. Was it really amongst the elite of best films within 2024, or of the last decade as what many critics were deeming it to be? And the simple answer is no. Now, was it as bad as the other notorious major Oscar contender in Emilia Perez? No, it wasn't. It definitely was superior, but that really isn't saying much considering the disaster that Emilia Perez turned out to be. And when watching Anora, you really question why films like it get such critical acclaim. Yes, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and film opinions are subjective, but I do believe that objectively you can tell what is a good film from a bad one. Is it just the fatigue of all of those Marvel superhero movies, the disillusionment that action and CGI blockbusters tend to get the most attention, make the most money, despite being average or disposable? Is it just movie snobbery or elitism, or just being contrary for the sake of it? Maybe it's all or none of those things, but ultimately a good film is a good film and a bad film is a bad film, no matter what the production or the budget or the director or the story or the concept. Whether the film cost $250 million or $6 million, it still has to have that strong framework in terms of plot, character and story, where things ultimately have to make some sort of sense. And this constant champion of movies, just because they're unconventional or have a lower budget, to me just isn't right. And this is something that we've seen within the Academy Awards for many years now, where in the past, certainly from the 80s to the early to mid 90s, the best picture would normally be amongst the highest successful of the year. But minus a few exceptions, such as Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer in 2023, for the most part, the films that are anointed the best of the year are genuinely films that have next to no cultural relevance or resonance. They're mostly seen by the critics themselves who get early screenings, and then once they win the award, they're largely forgotten about and never referred to once again. Now, of course, we do want newer stories, original ideas and concepts, rather than the endless sequels and reboots and remakes that we're seeing all the time. But at the same time, the film still has to be good or great before we start proclaiming it the best of the year, the best of the decade, or indeed the century. And in any of those regards, Anora definitely wasn't that movie in any way, shape, or form. So there's my overall thoughts and feelings when looking back at Anora and whether it truly deserved to be amongst the best movies of 2024. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you have any other further movies, television series, or any other topics within the pop entertainment and culture scene that you'd like to see me talk about within the channel, then also drop me a suggestion within the comments and I'll see if I can provide further content for you on that subject matter within the future. Please also hit like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves and I will see you very, very soon.